Shadow the Hedgehog had an interesting story, didn't it? Whether you like the game or not, there's no denying it resulted in a more complex story for both the plot of this game series and the character of Shadow. I've seen a lot of rewrites for games such as Sonic Forces and Sonic 06, but I've never actually seen any for this game. So I ran a poll on my Twitter asking what story in a Sonic game featuring a side character would you like to see, with a rewrite of Shadow the Hedgehog game being one of them. And unsurprisingly, this option won. I'm not surprised, Shadow the Hedgehog is quite a popular character, and this game turned out quite controversial. Now, I'd like to say that I am not a professional writer by any means. I am only an aspiring one, so this video is only for fun. This is not an insult to the original game's story, its writers, and anyone who actually likes the game. I'd also like to thank Luigi Prower here, and I probably butchered that pronunciation, so I'm so sorry. But as a friend of mine on Twitter who helped me come up with the concept of the story, I'll leave the link to his Twitter account in the description below, so go show him some support and check him out because he really helped with this. Now, there are two things I'm going to keep in this game's story to stay somewhat true to the original game. I'm keeping both Shadow's amnesia, as this was already established in Heroes, and the Black Arms in this rewrite. But, and this is the key but, I will be getting rid of the multiple pathways options. I personally didn't like this in the original game, and I don't think most people did. It resulted in the pacing being way too fast, and the story's plot being way too complicated, and the characterization of Shadow was kind of all over the place. I get where the writers wanted to go, as Shadow is a more morally grey character, so the pathways leave the players free to interpret whether Shadow is good or bad. But you flesh out a character more if you have a clear personality and you continuously develop that character. Anyway, now that we cleared that up, let's get on with the rewrite. The game would more or less start out the same, with Shadow on the hill having the same flashbacks of Maria. He would begin questioning who she is, before quickly scolding himself that he's moved on from this. He's the ultimate life form, that's all he needs to know. A newspaper would fly by his feet, and Shadow's eyes would gaze on the headlines and story, which claimed that sightings of Shadow the Hedgehog, one of the heroes that had saved the Earth before, had been seen around Metropolis. This would give Shadow the inclination and idea that he was actually once a hero who saved people, and whilst he brushes this off, this newspaper will unconsciously slightly affect his future actions in the rewrite, alongside other events as well. Now, I'm taking quite a different approach to Shadow and how he reacts to his past in this game. In the original game, all Shadow wanted to know about was his past. It was all he cared about. But this made no sense to me. He already went through this phase in Sonic Heroes, questioning who he was, whether he was real or not. But at the end of the game, he comes to the realization that it doesn't matter. He's still the ultimate life form, and that's all that matters to him. You can see it in this scene here.
You'll regret this, Doctor. Even if I'm not real, I'm still the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog.
So it doesn't make any sense for his character to then go to this game after, where he's questioning who he is and his past again. It's even more confusing when in a game like Sonic Battle that was released before Shadow the Hedgehog, he seemed to know of his past to Maria. So for the sake of this plot, we're just going to say that this game and rewrite is set before Sonic Battle. I'm not saying that he shouldn't find out about his past in this game. I mean, if you've lost your memory, you can't exactly control when you get flashbacks. But I actually think it would make more sense and to be more in character for Shadow to not want to find out about his past. For him to become hesitant and almost scared to find out. He had accepted who he was at the end of Heroes without knowing anything about his past. And when you've come to that acceptance, when you form this new identity, it can become scary to find out something that would completely change that. He had already told himself he had moved on from his past, and this game would be about him learning that you can still think about the past and move on from it. Moving on from your past means that you learn from it, that you don't let it define the actions you make in the present. It doesn't mean that you have to forget about it altogether. And I think this would be a key lesson in helping develop Shadow's character. Now, like before, the game would still follow the events of the Black Arms invading Earth, and Black Doom would come to Shadow telling him the Day of Reckoning is here and he needs to retrieve the Chaos Emeralds for him. Shadow would feel some weird mental connection with Black Doom, but he wouldn't so easily trust him. In fact, if anything, this connection makes him distrust Black Doom more. He goes into Metropolis to find Black Doom, not because he thinks the Chaos Emeralds will help him discover his past. I never thought it made any sense for someone like Shadow to just be so willing to believe everything Black Doom said. So he will solely distrust him in this game. I just realised I think I've been saying Metropolis this entire time and it's actually Westropolis. Anyway, we go into the first level of the game, Westropolis. Now, you know when I said I wasn't a professional writer earlier? Well, I'm even far off being a professional game developer, but I thought it would be fun to discuss and change up the gameplay as well. Because I'm getting rid of the good and bad storyline, you wouldn't have the hero gauge and the evil gauge that you have in the original game. And in this level, you'd only be fighting the Black Arms, not the GUN soldiers. You would have one gauge that goes up depending on how many enemies you defeat, and then you'd have the option to either use Chaos Control or Chaos Blast. I think this would help balance Shadow's skill set a little more if you could only choose one of the two. He'd have other basic attacks that he has in other games, such as his homing and spin attacks, Chaos Spear, and the Black Tornado attack he had in Sonic Heroes. As for the guns, I was debating on this for a while. I don't think it's out of character for him to use guns necessarily, but he never really uses them again, and I'd like the game rating to be bumped back down to an age that's suitable for everyone to play, including kids. Believe it or not, Sonic is a kids franchise, whether you like that or not. So I'm personally taking the guns out the gameplay, but if you prefer the guns in a game, you can keep them in this rewrite. It's up to you. Throughout the game level, Shadow can find upgrades and items like SA2, but you can just replace that with guns if you prefer. I'd probably have the level space be more like SA2 as well, where it's a little wider and more explorative, and in this level you can find very small little side goals where you can help humans being attacked from the Black Arms. This would be optional, but it could affect some cool aspects of level design later on in the game, whenever you're in a city-based level. There could be new stories talking about Shadow's heroic deeds in the background of levels. Halfway through the level, Shadow would meet up with Sonic as usual, and the two would have some friendly banter. There'd be something along the lines of Sonic saying, "Long time no see and fancy meeting you here," in which Shadow would immediately go to question him about what he knows about these creatures. Sonic would joke about how he never changes, but would let him know that they just seem to have randomly attacked, and he's unsure as to where they came from. He's never dealt with anything like this before. Shadow asks if he's seen their leader, Black Doom, as he's trying to track him down, which would lead to some friendly, competitive banter between the two about who's going to track Black Doom down first. Sonic and Shadow keep their rivalry, but still treat each other with more respect as opposed to the dialogue in a game like Team Sonic Racing. As usual, the level carries on with Sonic as your sidekick, and eventually the two encounter Black Doom at the end of the level. Shadow would demand to know who Black Doom is, and what his purposes are with the Chaos Emeralds. Black Doom would appear confused that Shadow doesn't know who he is, and would brush off his questions, as his hands and eyes would begin to glow a yellow colour, as he demands Shadow to return the Chaos Emeralds. However, his commands have no effect on Shadow, who alongside Sonic would tell him to quit with the games and demand answers as to who he is once again. Black Doom would appear confused and shocked that Shadow was questioning his orders, that he was so resistant to them. You see, whilst the main characters wouldn't notice at the time, Black Doom would actually be trying to mind control Shadow. This was inspired by both the Archie comics and Tail Luigi for giving me the idea. But as to why Shadow can initially resist the mind control, well, that'll be explained in another part. Gonna leave you in some suspense. Eventually though, Black Doom would brush off his concerns, and Sonic and Shadow's questions. He would tell Shadow that he knows he can sense a connection between the two, and in due time, he will bring him the Chaos Emeralds. But, for now, he will get them himself if he has to. Black Doom would get away before Sonic and Shadow get the chance to do anything, which leads to Sonic questioning Shadow who Black Doom is, which Shadow tells him he doesn't really know, but for certain, is that he knows he can't trust him. They can't let him get the Chaos Emeralds. That's when the two will be joined by Tails, who is analysing and tracking the Black Arms' attacks and invasions from above, and tells Sonic and Shadow that the Black Arms appear to be heading down Lethal Highway. Now, Tails will actually perform constant analyses on the Black Arms, and this will provide useful information for you in the future, as with each different Black Arm enemy you face in a game, Tails' data will give a description on their attack patterns, weaknesses and resistances, as well as just more background information on each black arm to give more lore to the species. I never felt like the original game really explained the black arms that well, their motives, their species, their culture. And I know they're just some alien race, but I think it'd be more interesting to have more depth to them. I would just like Tails as well to be more useful in the series, both for his fighting skills and also his intelligence. As of recent games, well, yeah, you don't really see that looking at U-Forces. After that cutscene, it would transition into a new one, with Rouge and a GUN commander who's watching live footage of Shadow and Sonic taking down the Black Arms together, with the GUN commander questioning Rouge if she knew of his return. She tries to deny it, but Commander sees right through her lies. She tells him the truth, that she knew him, and he seemed to have lost all his memory, but he'd helped them take down one of Eggman's robots before. The commander mentions how he wants to be able to trust Shadow, since he did save the world before, but with his power of being an ultimate life form, not to mention his amnesia, this could make him extremely dangerous and unstable. However, he could provide useful in defeating the Black Arms. Rouge insists that he's trustworthy, and the GUN commander tells her that he's ordering her to spy on Shadow while also aiding him defeating the Black Arms. Rouge would be hesitant at first, not keen on the idea of spying on Shadow a second time. However, knowing that this could help prove he is trustworthy in the long run, Rouge agrees to the mission. I would like to expand more on this game about how Shadow's death in SA2 actually affected Rouge. I think it would be in character for her to have this conflict of feeling guilty that right before Shadow died, their last time spent together could have been him finding out that she was a spy going behind his back. That's not really the best last impression, especially if she was accusing Shadow of not really being real. But she would also be hesitant to trust Shadow, because she still isn't sure if he's not just an android by the end of Heroes. Even though she wants to prove everyone and herself that he is trustworthy, I think this gives a pretty good explanation as to why Rouge is willing to side and help with Shadow, but still never told him about his past in Heroes. Because I think me and many others got confused as to why Rouge never actually told anything to Shadow. If we could have at least got an explanation on that. But that's why this rewrite exists. After that cutscene, you would then jump straight into the next gameplay stage, which would take place in Lethal Highway. Both Tails and Sonic would be your sidekicks in this mission. The more sidekicks you have, the more enemies you'd have, and the higher difficulty they'd be, just to help balance out the gameplay a bit more. By the end of the level, you encounter Black Doom, who has found one of the Chaos Emeralds, but just like last time, he manages to get away again, and you'd have to face the same boss fight in the original game, being the Black Bull. After defeating the boss, Shadow would make up his mind that he's going to go after Black Doom on his own. Whilst a lot of Shadow's portrayal hasn't been the best in recent games or comics due to mandates, which I'm blaming the mandates for, not the writers by the way, I can understand a lot of the complaints towards Shadow's behaviour, as I have some of them myself. But to be fair, to some extent I do think Shadow's independence and wanting to go off on his own is in character for him, like this scene in Sonic 06.
What is Eggman up to? Who is Mephiles?
I'm gonna ask him directly.
Hey, wait a sec.
I can handle this alone. You keep track of Mephiles.
As long as he's not being a horrible jerk about it, I think it's fine. Before Shadow can go be broody and go off on his own, much to Tails and Sonic's protests, Rouge would actually arrive on the scene. She tells Shadow that if he's going to track Black Doom down, then he's going to need some help finding the Chaos Emeralds, and he'll need help from the best treasure hunter around. Shadow would joke about how she probably just wants the emeralds for herself, which he'd flirtingly reply some comment about him knowing her so well, before she gets serious and tells him that they can't afford to let Black Doom win and get his hands on the emeralds. Sonic and Tails would put their foot down as well, saying they'll help out. If they all split up in searching for the emeralds, they have a greater chance in stopping Black Doom. Rouge and Shadow wander off, with Rouge joking about how she must be growing on him if he's always stuck teaming up with her. I love Team Dark's dynamic. It's my favourite out of all the different teams. And I loved it in both Heroes and 06. However, the jump between those games does feel a little weird. I mean, in Heroes it's about the team forming, but then in 06 they are really close. They kind of act like a found family in my opinion. I mean, you have Rouge stating that she'll always be by Shadow's side. And even though I adore the scene, like, it's one of my favourites, if not the favourite, in Sonic 06, But there's barely any build up to it in Shadow's original game. I mean, in his original game, Shadow barely interacts with both Rouge and Omega. But in my rewrite, their team dynamic will be quite a key focus. And with Heroes being a game that forms their team, Sonic 06 being their already established close dynamic, in my Shadow the Hedgehog rewrite, it will focus on how the trust builds between the team and how they form this close bond in Sonic 06. Because they are friends, and I don't care what the SEGA mandates say, Team Dark are friends, okay? But that will end the first part of my rewrite. I mean, I'm planning on potentially covering the whole game, so I can't do this in one episode or my throat will die. I mean, I've already been an awkward stuttering mess in this video, let's be real, okay, I'm British, that's in my nature. But I hope you guys enjoyed it anyway. This is a more slower paced start to the original story because I think the pacing was way too fast before. And I wanted to fix some stuff up, like the multiple pathways. I want to thank Tailluigi Jump Power once again for helping me come up with the story for this rewrite. Once again, you can find his Twitter in the description below, please give him some support. If this is a series you would like to see me continue making, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a comment below, and like the video. And be sure to check out my other videos as well. My channel focuses on voice acting, where I like to think I don't sound nearly as awkward as my normal speaking voice. But my channel also focuses on art and potentially more discussion videos. But it all revolves around Sonic the Hedgehog, so make sure to stick around if you want to see more content surrounding the Blue Bear. Thank you for watching!